The views and opinions expressed by tonight's guest and topic of discussion do not necessarily represent the official policy or position of Spaced Out Radio, Spaced Out Saturdays or Sundays, SOR Media, its hosts, syndicated carriers, or anyone associated with this broadcast. Any rebroadcast, reproduction, or other use of this broadcast or podcast without the express written consent of SOR Media is strictly prohibited. Listener discretion is advised. Are you experienced? Then come own the night with us.
Little brother has taken control, shoveling dirt in every hole. Predators to condemn your soul, watching you and watching me. We're all
Station atop the mountains of British Columbia, live from SOR headquarters. This is Spaced Out Radio with host Dave Scott.
We live behind glass curtains and act like nothing's wrong. Soon you will belong.
You can follow us on our website, spacedoutradio.com, and on Spaced Out Radio on iTunes. You can follow Dave on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio, and on Instagram at Dave Scott SOR, on Facebook at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on our YouTube channel, Spaced Out Radio.
Brother wants to make headlines, be immortalized. Everyone's got an electric eye with the digital spies. They've watched you for so long. I know you're out there somewhere watching me.
Buckle up, space travelers. It's time to go for a ride on Spaced Out Radio with host Dave Scott.
I know you're out there somewhere. We've watched you for so long. We wait for you to fall. We will expose you all. I know you're out there somewhere watching me. Little brother wants to make headlines, be immortalized.
It's Tuesday, April 17th, Wednesday, April 18th, if you're on the East Coast or across the pond, and this is Spaced Out Radio. Hope you had a great day and night. I am your host, Dave Scott, sitting in the captain's chair, live in the Great White North in the Caribou region on top of the snowy mountains of central British Columbia, right here at SOR headquarters. We are 150,000 strong nightly on WQEE 99 Rock the Key in Noonan, Georgia. We are also live on the United Public Radio Network 107.7 FM in New Orleans and over 160 countries around the world. We are also live at spacedoutradio.com, Spreaker, and we are live on the Fringe FM, so make sure you check out the amazing programming by going to thefringe.fm. If you want to follow us on social media, we're all over the place. Uncle Bob just told you off the bat. You can also follow us on periscope.tv. Right now we are there every Monday through Friday, and our archives are on our YouTube channel, youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do me a big favor, subscribe to our channel. We could use it. If you head to our website, spacedoutradio.com, do a little shopping at our store, will ya? Read up on the encounter online, dealing with everything paranormal, strange, and odd. You can check out my latest blog, a dedication to Art Bell, on there as well. We got great videos from UFO Seekers, Contact TV, and so much more. It's a Tuesday night. Let's get this thing going. We got a great guest tonight, and I got to tell you, she is one of my favorite people in this field, and I had the utmost pleasure, the humble pleasure, of meeting her just a couple of weeks ago at the UFO Con in San Francisco. We're going to bring our guest on momentarily because, when you go far down the rabbit hole in this field, you end up hearing stories, like we will tonight, about how dangerous and entangled the field of ufology goes. It's not just looking for lights in the skies or little gray dudes running around asking you to take them to your leader. No. It's an ugly horror movie-like scenario where people are manipulated, mutilated, sometimes murdered for the sake of who knows. It's scenarios like Miesha Johnston's story tonight that can only come from the darkest parts of one's imagination. Misha has been an abductee, a contactee. She has had the most horrific MILAB and MKULTRA experiences. The threats of what she knew went as so far that she actually left this field for more than 15 years to protect her and her family. But the call for the truth brought her back 10 times stronger. Misha, out of Las Vegas, now helps people as a hypnotherapist and a trauma recovery hypnotist. She also runs the Starseed Awakening group, which helps support those who have been targeted by ritual abuse. Misha, always a pleasure to talk with you. It was so nice to finally meet you face-to-face down at UFO Con. How have you been, my friend?
Oh, great. It was so wonderful meeting you and getting to hang out a little with you and get to know you better. You're a great guy. And it was a wonderful conference, wasn't it? To me, it was like the best one I've been to in a long time.
It was so much fun. And, I told our audience, leading up to that, it was kind of funny for me because all the speakers, most of the speakers knew who I was because, like you had been on the show before, you had heard the name, we had talked on the phone. It was just a matter of putting a face to a voice. But for the spectators that were there, they didn't really know who I was. So they would walk up, I would watch them, they'd walk up to you, chat with you, because everybody knows who you are. Then little old Davey would come on trouncing. They would stare at my little name tag and be like, who is this guy? And then after my speech on Sunday, it was like everybody all of a sudden knew who I was, and I was, kind of emotional about that experience. But, the way you guys, and when I say all of you, you, Geraldine, Grant, Steve Bassett, Len Caston, the Lessons, Lorian, the way you guys really brought me in, Tana Newberry as well, and the way you brought me in, I owe you a big thank you for that, because for the first time in this field, I really felt like I was part of something special.
Well, thank you. You're very welcome. And Lorian knows how to pick them when she does a conference. She really knows how to pick good guests. Good speakers. You did fabulous. I only got to listen to a little bit of it because after I was on, I got bombarded big time. And so you know what I mean. You can't even leave your table, or if you do, I was doing regression. So I unfortunately didn't get to really watch the rest of the conference much, except for just popping in here and there. But you did a wonderful job, and I heard great things about your talk.
Well, thank you, and I hope you put the Spaced Out Radio poster in a nice spot.
Oh, yes. Definitely. I sure will. I will. Very much so. It's in my front of my desk where everybody who comes in, whether they're getting a regression or they come into the support groups, they can always see it.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. I want to start off, Misha, with Art Bell. As everybody knows, the legend passed away last Friday, and I think a lot of us are still stinging and hurting because for many of us, Misha, we grew up with Art Bell. And not only did we grow up, we grew up with people like you who had been on Coast to Coast AM. Take us back to what you remember best about Art Bell.
Well, I really felt that he was the first in a line of long radio hosts now, and then of course Coast to Coast continuing on, but he was so great. His stuff was so riveting. His guests were riveting. He had wonderful, interesting information to pass on. Unique, something that other people would not touch. He touched. So that's why I say he was like a pioneer in this, because there was no topic that was off base for him. None. In fact, I didn't. Unfortunately, by the time we got on the air and got on Coast to Coast, he was pretty much getting off and retiring. So George Sigel was filling in a lot, and he was our interviewer. And Melinda Leslie and myself were on that show. I think it was in 2000.
And we're going to get to that because that's an important event as to what is going on with what we're going to discuss tonight. You mentioned that Art, and I agree with you, he was a complete pioneer of this entire field. How much credibility do you think he gave to this entire community? Oh,
unbelievable amount of credibility. He, like I said, he brought the whole phenomena out in the light of day. Though it was a night show, he brought it out into the light of day, and people started saying, "Oh, okay, well, if it's Art Bell, then it might be real. It probably is real." And that's the kind of credibility he brought to it.
Do you think that without Art starting this format, that eventually it would have came along, due to online radio and blogs and podcasting? Or do you think that because Art was really the first before the internet to bring this out, that really he pioneered an entire genre to get into the broadcasting field?
Well, yes, this is not a topic that anybody in any radio would talk about until he bridged it. And I would say that it was definitely him pioneering it. And I'm not sure what would have happened, because I tell you, when in the 90s, when he was coming, that his show was going on, and I can't remember, I started listening to it in the early 90s. And I would speak at some little conferences here or there, or I'd lecture here or there. And the topics that I had, they didn't want to hear, really. Most of the people did not want to hear these kinds of things. That, MILAB, he was the first one to bring out the whole thing about MILAB. He was the first one to bring out about this secret bases and the government, and all the things that were going in the shadow government, in the secret bases. He was the first one to talk about the interdimensionals, and that they are part of the let's call it the intrepidation and of what is occurring and happening to our Earth, that is not all on a positive. It's a lot of them are very. Well, a lot of them are very negative. That's the only way I can tell you. There's negative. Of course, there's positive in all races. So even some of those, in the interdimensional are positive too. But he brought out a lot of information about all fields like this.
Yeah, he was definitely a special person to everybody in this field. And for me, there's so many stories that I have driving home from the radio station I was working at in Vancouver and being on the edge of the seat. And, I kind of laughed about this in my blog. I wonder how many car accidents Art Bell actually caused by some of the freaky topics that he had on, whether it was EVPs or the sounds of hell or strange things like John Teeter, the time traveler, or whatever it was, because he so knew how to keep people glued to their radio that I'm pretty sure he is responsible for a few car accidents from people just being way too zoned in on what Art was saying.
Right, and a lot of insomniacs as well, because I could not go to sleep until I finished listening to Art Bell, and I'm sure a lot of people were like that.
Definitely so. I don't know how many nights I had, Misha, where I would literally be up. I'd have to be up at like 6 o'clock in the morning, and it's 2:30 a.m., but Art's on a real topic that is just something I just can't turn the radio off of because I have to listen to it. You're so right on that. You are so right. He caused a lot of insomnia.
Yes.
But I want to, we're going to be talking to all our guests tonight about their biggest Art Bell memories. Do you have an Art Bell story that you may have heard on the air that really sticks with you to this day?
Yes, and there's some controversial about it, but I just don't know. I just think it's real. It was a call-in show, and in this call-in show, a man came on, and I believe I can tell when someone is faking it and such, and I didn't feel that these people who are calling in, and he was talking about the topic of Area 51, I believe, or secret bases, one of the two. And this fellow called in and said, in a very panicked voice, that he was being chased and that he was hiding out, and that you have to understand that they're not aliens, they're interdimensionals, that they're not aliens that are to be feared. And basically he was talking, I bet you remember that one. I was just sitting on the edge of my seat, and I couldn't believe it. It was just amazing. And I still believe that it was true. Some people have come up and said that this was just some fake call, but it was never brought out by Art that it was fake. And I think that they're just naysayers myself. I really believed it. I could feel it in this guy's, but this guy believed he was in danger. He believed his life was in jeopardy, and I could feel it. And then there were other people on that same night that called in that were talking. So I thought it was great.
I think so too. But let's start with your experience, because there's always audience members who are not familiar with our guests. You are a lifelong experiencer in some of the strangest stories that I had ever heard. And I'm going to be honest with you, Misha. I'm sure when you were on stage at UFO Con, you didn't notice this, but I actually had to get up and leave during your conference because I was so disturbed at times about some of the things that you were going through. I just honestly could not handle it. I could not handle it because your story is just amazing. So take us from day one, if you don't mind, in a little recap here over the next few minutes of what happened with you, how you got involved with this entire field.
Okay, well, I will go through, in my opinion, the path that assisted and helped me survive my ordeal in my life, and that was my first contact, which were BGs, I called them, and I called them BG the Bears. I was 3, and they would come and visit me, and they did on many occasions. They even took me up what I considered flying, which now I look back on and I found out it's levitation. I was levitating up to the ship, and they were always kind to me, and they sounded like little, it's hard to explain, but little munchkins, little teeny voices. They had
Ewoks.
Well, that's who they ended up being, in my opinion. When I saw Star Wars years later, because this was like in 1952. So years later, Star Wars came out, and I saw the Ewoks. I heard the Ewoks, and I went, oh my gosh, somebody else has seen him. Somebody else has had experience with him. And Dave, since then I have met many people who have had experience with this little short mammalian, furry, little lovable characters. So that was my first encounter, and they were with me. It didn't seem like too long, maybe a couple of years. Then about maybe 3 years, about 6 years old, I started encountering another type, which was, for some people they call them gray. This one was not gray. It was a white color. It was taller than the grays. There were grays that were there as well, but I call this one the tall, willowy one. And it was about 5.5, 6 feet tall, and very, very, very slender. And I called it willowy because when it walked, it just floated. It didn't touch the ground, and it didn't seem like it had any vertebrae, any bones. So that one was with me for a long time. That one was with me up into my teen years. And you know, the whole thing about star seeds and how this whole works, I believe that our galactic star family, such as the Bee Gees for me and the Willy Wee one for me, were I've been those things before. I've probably been those lives before, because, you know, we have a planet of origin. Let's say my planet of origin, my first planet of origin is Sirius. And then I believe that I spent a lot of time on Sirius, maybe 1,000 here, about 2,000 here, you know, in the different planetary systems of Sirius. And then I moved to someplace else. And of course that was Pleiades, and then also Orion. And so I'm sure I lived other places too, but I've lived in all these different planets. So I have a lot of family. I have a lot of lineage. In time from time, there are certain groups that do visit us, and they do are in contact with us. And some of them are in, it feels like it might be an abduction, but it's because everybody who comes into this comes into the, and I shouldn't say everybody, but almost everybody who comes into it at first in the fear. They're afraid of what has happened. The unknown has happened. They woke up with paralysis on their body. You know, I'd wake up and with paralysis, and I'd see beings next to me, and yes, I was scared. I was frightened had the closet door had to be closed. I was frightened of the dark, up until I was like way into my 20s did I finally turn off my lights. And those are just really normal things. But these beings that come, they'll come for a time and then they go. And they come for a time and then they go. So a lot of people, such as, and including myself, had times where I would have experiences with this willow woman, for instance, for years and years, but I'd only see him maybe twice a year, or I might see him 2 times that week and then not for another 4 months. And it's just, that's the way it works. And they come with information, and a lot of times they're taking us on board. And in fact, I've had this, that I was taken on board ships and I was taught in school kind of situation. I mean, I'd have memories of sitting with other children and learning things. In my case, the things that I was to learn, I'd say per my agreement that I made before I came on this planet, was about languages. And I would see languages on these holographic screen kind of things, and I would hear languages, and I would write languages, and then there were other things about telepathy and interfacing with other ETs to understand telepathically what they're saying, or hear them audibly with their galactic language and interface that, and then translate that as well. So these are things that I did for a long time. And, you know, it's very interesting about this. I will say that I am a hypnotherapist. Well, I've had a lot of hypnotherapy myself to find out these pieces that I have, like I'm telling you now, I get more information from. Well, one of the things was on the information that I got when I was trying to find out what these classrooms were all about was I went to a past life where, actually I went to 2 past lives, but the first past life was me as an ambassador, and I worked with many, many races in this galactic community, and in interfacing and communicating with them. So that was not odd for me to come back here and agree to do that. So I would do that, and in the classes. Also, there was a psychometry, we'd not really psychometry, excuse me, telekinesis. And we were taught about telekinesis, and I believe these, you know, I would talk to my family and my parents, and I believe they were definitely experiencers. And I in fact have an experience where we all had an experience together and were taken up in the ship together, but they still were in denial, let's put it that way. And so when I would talk to them about my invisible BGs or my invisible willowy one, they thought that it was my imagination, that I had a vivid imagination. They would say that. They would say that all the time. So no, I don't know if I didn't do it with my kids. I don't know if that was the right thing, or maybe they didn't remember until much, much later. Because my father never recounted his physical experiences with the ETs that he'd had until much, much later. I was an adult, and all the rest of the siblings were adults. So then one night we were all there together, and we were talking about things, and they decided that they were going to we were going to talk about, some of our life experiences. And I said, hey, I want to know, did you ever believe that I had ET contact? I mean, I used to get chased home from school because I'd talk about it, and you would tell me, no, I shouldn't talk about it. But does anybody ever, remember me talking about it? And they said, yes, we did, but we just didn't think it would match with you. You had to be able to blend into people, and then the community we were in were a very religious, per se, community. There was a lot of Mormons around the community and everything, so they said it was better not to talk about it. But then we shared, and we all talked about an experience, and we all gave our sides of an experience where my mother, first we were driving and we were on a vacation, and my mother said, "What, for the love of Pete, Roger, what is that in the sky?" And we all looked, and it was a saucer, and this saucer paralleled us for quite some time. And then it just sped off at unbelievable speed. And that was in the evening time. And that evening, as my father was driving up this very windy road, one by one, everybody fell asleep. And we were awoken by my father screaming in a panic and bringing the car to a screeching halt and saying, "Oh my God, I don't know how I got here." We were on the opposite side of the mountain, and we were got there somehow. And this was way before any kind of freeways. So I told them, I said, "Well, I'll tell you what I found out, and would you like to know?" So I told them, I said, I remembered some of this, and then I got some more information from my regression, but that our entire car was taken up, and it was lifted up certainly to protect and save us, because whether they were there at the wrong time, they were at the right time, or whether they were watching us, I don't know, but they lifted the whole car up and took it and put it on the other side of the mountain. In the meantime, we were taken in the bottom of the ship, through the bottom of the ship, and we all had subsequent experiences, and I remember seeing my brother in the next table over from me having some kind of a experiment done on him. So, that just gives a little bit. That takes you till about 8 years old or so. Do I continue?
I want to get to a couple questions here first. My friend Corey. Mm-hmm. Who is a very good person. She's like a sister to me. She is like a very very knowledgeable spiritual type person who helps me out with my ghost tours, and we're helping putting on our Paracon up here this year with her and the Canadian Society of Questers. One of the first stories she ever told me was her one day walking into her laundry room, and as she started walking through the door, around the corner came one of these little BG guys.
Wow.
So she tuned in a little bit late. What do you know about these BG guys?
Well, I'll tell you, I have a whistleblower who gave me some information. He passed on a picture and said, and this picture that I showed on my PowerPoint, but it is a black and white picture of an old military, and I don't know, I can't tell you where or what it was, what kind of uniform it was, but there was a BG shaking hands with this military man. And you can really see by the picture that it is not a dummy or a doll or even a midget. And this person also told me that, and I don't know, I can't verify this, so I don't know for sure, but that we don't know where the Bee Gees came from, he said, but that they have had some interaction at Area 51, for instance. They were out there, and that they were also, that one of them, who was, I guess, per se, kind of a guest of them, was actually used his imagery completely. Evidently, they videoed it or something, and it was used in one of the scenes of the Star Wars. So I don't know. I cannot confirm or deny that, but it was quite an interesting story. And did she feel a positive reaction for this little Ewok-y fellow?
What I remember Corey telling me, and I know she's in the chat room, and there will be a little bit of a delay here as she's listening in, and she's probably racing to her keyboard right now to listen on in and type in. But they both kind of startled each other. And then the Ewok ran back into the laundry room and kind of around the corner, and the laundry room's really small, but she has a closet in there, and it was like there was a portal in there, because when she went into the closet, it wasn't there. It was gone.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Yeah.
Sounds like them, you know. They don't want to really be seen, and they the first time I seen them was a very interesting, odd place. My parents had a variety store downstairs, and we lived upstairs. And the kids were gone to school. And one day, you know, my parents were working in the store, and I was just playing around in the store a little bit, and out in the hall and underneath the stairs, and just you know, playing it by myself. And my parents were busy in the store, and these little guys showed up then, and that was the first time I'd seen them. And I think they liked the reaction that I had to them, that I wasn't frightened, and I thought they were fun, and I wanted to talk to them, wanted to get to know them, and that's how they showed up to me, was in, you know, daytime, pretty much probably like her.
She said there were 3 shimmering lines around him as he stood right in front of me, then he disappeared. So I apologize. I thought he went around the corner, but apparently he didn't. He disappeared right in front of her.
Yeah, they can disappear right in front of you. They can. I almost think that they are some of the positive, more maybe parallel existence, interdimensionals or such as that. But I don't know. I've never got a chance to find out where they're from. They probably aren't interdimensions, because of this whistleblower told me that they were actually seen at the base. So I'd love to hear if anybody else has any stories about whether they've seen him at the base, so I could verify that.
Corey says she wasn't scared, except that it was very unexpected, because they literally almost bumped into each other.
Mm-hmm.
Do they come around, in your experience of research, in a positive, negative atmosphere? Have you figured out or been able to try and define what the purpose is to their arrival in the strangest places? Could they be part of the fairy realm?
Oh, that's a very possible scenario. They could very much so. Actually, Kasara, who is a beautiful, wonderful artist. She's an intuitive artist, and she's done many artworks for me and art pieces for me about my experiences, and then many hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of other people. And they have come up from people who have described them that they thought they were, yes, like from the fairy realm. And that would explain why they feel like an interdimensional energy. They don't feel... Because I don't know if I ever saw a ship. I never saw a ship. I just know that I was flying or levitating above the roofs of the house at nighttime with them. But I don't know, you know, unlike my other encounters, I definitely remember ships or underground bases, whichever the case may be. But this one, I never did remember ships. So they may be from that realm. And I think they're definitely a positive. I definitely felt they were very positive. For me, I tell you, they came when I was at my first darkest hour, I should say. At 3 years old, I was in a family. I was born into a family which was mind controlled, and which was, what we call the MKULTRA, mind control. My family is German and French. My father, I should say my grandmother and his stepfathers, and quite possibly his father, but we've never ever got to find that out, were all Rosicrucians. And he became a Rosicrucian at a very young age. And it led to extreme darkness in his life, cruelty, torture for him, and subsequently being mind controlled. It goes in generations. And so he carried that on to me and to my siblings as well. And so I believe that the BGs came for me because at 3 years old was when my trauma-based mind control started, and my father started the torture, trauma torture that he needed to do in order to have me split in my personality split. And he actually said to me, I have a very strong memory of this when I was being in a sexual way tortured with an object. I was crying, and he says, "You must learn how to leave. You must learn how to leave your body, because much more pain than this will you endure if you don't. You have to learn to leave your body." So, when one dissociates and leaves their body through trauma and such as that makes a place now for others who are, in the and I'm not saying all Rosicrucians are bad, Dave, and same thing with Masons. That is another part of my life, and being a Job's daughter, and relatives being Masons and such from my mother's side, but that certainly some of the Rosicrucians and the Masons in the higher up degrees are part of this black shadow, Illuminati, black magic. In my case, it was a lot of black magic that went on in my case. And my father, at the time when I was born, was a magician, and he was actually a stage magician. He would travel around doing magic shows with 3 of my siblings. One of my siblings does not remember much of anything, but the other 2 did remember, hated him till the day he died, and would never even come to his deathbed or his funeral or anything. So the Bee Gees came at that time.
That's sad. Why was there such tension with your father? Was he just that morally, physically, and emotionally abusive that they didn't want anything to do with him? Is that why? Made their lives and your life a living hell growing up?
Yes. Unfortunately, also, they were a commodity, because when he would go out on the show, on the magic show, he didn't have any employees. His employees were his children, and they did all of the stagehand. My oldest brother was the stagehand. He would make all of them. He was like a genius, and he could make all the stage props. His show was Great London Ghost Show, so it was a ghost show. It was demonic types of things. They had flying ghosts, and my brother developed all of these things. So he was that. And if he didn't do it, then he was beaten severely, beaten. Things like razor strips and belts with hooks, metal brought things in. And unlike my father talked about being his mother talked about it, that he was beaten almost to death by one of the people in her group, or it was her husband, but she. Well, I'm sorry, my mother told me about it. My mother told me about it because my dad told her. My grandmother was the one that allowed it to happen. So he was abused terribly and whipped, with whips and such as that. So, and then my sister, I know there must have been sexual torture for her too. She was his assistant, and she was also quite assuredly psychic, and that some of their routine in the show was about him being a mind reader and her being his assistant. And I believe in the other way around, I believe she was the psychic. So he used them as commodity and even kept them out of school in order to do this. So it wasn't a very positive thing for him. It was a terrible thing for him to do, and he was extremely abusive to all of them except for the one, and she remembers our father a completely different way than the rest of us. Also, I'm not saying my father did this, but within I had 10 siblings, and 4 of them died before the age of 2, and one lived to 6 years old. And then the other one was a stillborn, or could have been taken. It was supposedly my mother, according to the woman's center that she was in, said that it was a stillborn, and she never did see the baby, so she doesn't know that. So it could have been taken. We don't know. But something happened to his family, and my father on his deathbed actually made a confession to me and said, "I'm so sorry that I did what I did to you, because your mother could not have handled losing any more children. I had to do what I had to do, because at least we'd have a chance to raise you as our own and be able to be with you and not lose you." So I totally feel that the rest of them all that died were taken away from them because they wouldn't comply. And then he finally decided to comply with me.
That is so traumatizing, and this is actually the part where I had to walk out, because I couldn't imagine any father doing that to their own children, whether it's sacrifice, whether it's the beatings, the sexual or ritual type abuse on that. How were you able to forgive your father or to move on from that incident? Because there's a lot of people going through that to this day, and they don't know whether they're coming or going, living or dying.
I had a time in my life I felt exactly that way. I didn't know I was coming or going or living, dying. My father died in 1977. So by then, I had gone through a lot more and understood that it wasn't just my father, that it was, shall we say, my plight, I guess you might say. So I could no longer, and especially when I saw my father in suffering so badly, because he died of a terrible cancer, brain tumor, agonizing tumor in his throat, and he was in agony. And in fact, he even was in an automobile accident, and later on fell, and subsequently, they first hadn't seen that he had a cracked neck, and then when he fell, it broke all the rest away. So he was for a long time in the hospital in agony. So had my other siblings seen him in such agony, I think they could have forgiven him too. I had to forgive him because by then I already knew that other things were happening to me, not at his hands anymore, at other people's hands. So I knew that it was a family generational thing. And in fact, his brother, I'd like to mention, for people who may know, was Krishnaventa in the Fountain of the World colony in San Fernando Valley from 49 to 1958. He was the Krishnaventa, the leader of that cult. And this cult was a type where people would hand over their life savings, actually mostly women, hand over their life savings to Krishna and to the tribe, the rest of them, or whatever they call themselves. And then, he ended up being assassinated by one of the very unhappy husbands. But he was crazy, just crazy man. I mean, what he did in his life was pretty crazy. So the craziness did run in the family because I believe in the torture they endured. In fact, the father that beat my father so bad with that almost killed him was the same father that Pinkavink. His name is actually Pinkavink. Anyway, I don't usually tell his name, but it just kind of came out there.
It was meant to. Meant to.
Yeah.
Are you over the pain? Are you over the sadness? Do you think you got ripped off in life, Misha? Or do you think it made you a stronger person to deal with what you were dealing with today?
Earlier, I used to feel like I'll tell you where I feel like I got ripped off. Not in the childhood memories. My family have pictures and things of events or things they're going that they pictures or videos, and I'm in the video, but I'm this like little shrinking violet. I'm very, very introverted. I don't remember that child. When I look at myself, I don't remember that child. That to me isn't me. I don't, I don't remember my life or my school or my grade school or my friends or my parties, or I don't even remember my high school graduation or my first date or anything. Through that time, I was going what it was called the Blackfoot Asylum, and I was spending a lot of time in the asylum, which incidentally was just maybe a mile away from my grandmother's house. So I believe that the cover was me go out to see grandmother, and I ended up in the asylum. And those are times where I remember the other kinds of tortures and, deprivation, being locked in rooms in the dark, not having food or water. And if you asked for water, it was kind of like waterboarding, only they'd throw a big bucket of water on you, and, till it just took your breath away type of thing for a moment. It might have been the precursor of waterboarding, I suppose. Then being put in boxes where you felt like you were being, buried alive. Though it wasn't endured, I just remember being locked in boxes. But the very interesting thing about this is because of my connection with my ETs and the BGs, I could pull in those wonderful memories. And I would talk to them, actually. I remember them. I'd talk to them. And I'd sometimes even be, singing and making noises, happy noises, which really ticked off my trainers very much. They'd get very upset and pound on the thing and tell me to shut up. And so I learned, how to be desensitized from pain and from fear and things like that. There was a tank that they used as well. That was a little bit older, probably in my teen years. I remember that one, where actually it's some kind of it's not just about being in a tank of water and being underneath it, but there was something about being able to, I felt like I could breathe in it. And I haven't really gone into, but those are like just flashes and memories. And I've never done any regression on any of that time because I didn't feel that was necessary to find out the details, because it's hard enough just to, go through it with what details I do have.
Tell us about your first alien experiences. We only got about 5.5 minutes here before we have to go to break. With aliens that, not so much the Bee Gees, but with the Greys or the Pleiadians, when did that start coming full force to you?
Well, okay, the willowy one, that was the whites and the grays. And I would... my first memory of them, they're the teacher. I used to be in the school, and they were the ones. It was the woolly ones would take me to school. And then there was another experience where I was about 10 years old. Yeah, about 10 years old, and I was. No, I wasn't. I was younger than that. I was like about 7 years old, and I would see these little gray guys at my window, and they were deers. As far as I was concerned, they were deers, and when they'd come to the window, I knew it was time for me to go, and there was always 3 of them, and sometimes I was brought back that very night and put back in bed. Occasionally I was under my bed for some reason or other. I don't know how I ended up under my bed. Occasionally, it was like maybe 2 times, I was outdoor on the outdoor porch. And a couple other times I should say, I was in other parts of the house. And so, of course, my parents also thought maybe I sleptwalk, which I didn't. I know I don't. I don't sleepwalk. But those were some of the encounters. And they were, so they would take me, more schooling things. Now, I did have some memory one time, and this was when I was probably 15 or 16. Very naive, didn't know much about anything, and I was having some kind of a gynecological examination or something with these Greys, and the Greys were doing it, and the willowy one, I didn't see him anywhere, and I started to get panicky when I didn't see him, and the willowy one leaned over my head, because he was behind me, and leaned over and telepathically said, "Do not be frightened, we're not hurting you, we will not hurt you, this is necessary for the hybrid program." And, when we come back to the break, I'll get into more of the hybrid programs, because I was indeed in the hybrid program for a lot of years, and with several different types, quite a few different types that are in the hybrid program. And as for the Pleiadians, I don't have much encounters with Pleiadians. I don't. I had one time that I was, I believe, definitely a Pleiadian, and they just came to remind me of who I was, and to remind me that I was supposed to be here, and that they recognized me, and that they loved me, and that they missed me. And in fact, I have her picture on my wall of the being that it looked like, which I believe could have also been me in another lifetime. I don't know. I felt like as I look at it, it's connected to me completely. And I know that kind of seems weird, but we are living parallel existences, and there's no past, present, and future. It's all happening simultaneously. So it's very easy to experience, different lives and different parallel existences, different Earth existence as well.
Wow. A heavy first hour, Misha. Heavy first hour. And there's so many different ways to go, and unfortunately 3 hours is not going to be enough for us tonight after what you just filled us in on, my dear.
Oh, I could cut it down.
Oh, no.
Yeah, well, I listen, I know it's hard for people to understand, and I'm always looking for people who have experienced these similar things, Dave, so that I can have a support system too, because there's not a lot of people out there. There's just a handful of women who have come forward about their lives, and now maybe quite a few more now. They're coming to my group, which of course is a very, very important part of what my mission was, and how come I had to experience and endure what I did, because it made me a more understanding, more loving, and more non-judgmental person. So that you understand.
On that note, I'm going to get you to hold on where we're going to hop out for our first break of the night. Miesha Johnston is our guest tonight. In hour number 2, we are going to get more into MKULTRA, more into MILAB experiences, including the horrific experience Misha had with Melinda Leslie after doing a program on Coast to Coast. You got to stay tuned for this story. This one will definitely give you the heebie-jeebies, for sure. You're listening to Spaced Out Radio. I am your host, Dave Scott. We'll be back with more right after this.
Find your escape where time has no limits. It's about living today and cherishing the heritage of yesterday. A spirit of adventure for what is new, with the nostalgia of the past. Your timepiece is a reflection of who you are. Life surrounded by beauty from the world around us to the soul within. EscapeWatches.com. There is no time like the present to enjoy your escape. Use promo code SMF2017 for your 20% discount today.
The freedom to post what you want, when you want. That's the social media freedom you need. Social Media Freedom is the free app in your app store. No need to worry about going to jail or being shadow banned any longer. It's the freedom to say what you feel. The freedom to know Big Brother isn't watching. It's the way social media is supposed to be. Social Media Freedom. It's time to set yourself free. Download from your app store today.
Coming September 28th to the 30th, it's our first annual Caribou Paracon, put on by Spaced Out Radio and the Canadian Society of Questers. 3 days of paranormal, supernatural, and spiritual knowledge in the beautiful 108 Mile Ranch, British Columbia. Tickets are $150 Canadian for the event, being held at the Spruce Hills Resort and Spa. Come watch our featured speaker, Grant Cameron, along with Lorian Fenton, David Weatherly, Ross Allison, and more. The Caribou Paracon, celebrating everything paranormal.
Hey Space Travelers, it's Joe Roop, your host of Spaced Out Saturdays. Come join me as we explore the realms of the paranormal, the esoteric, and everything in between every Saturday night at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern. You know the truth is out there. Don't get caught sleepwalking. Come join Spaced Out Saturdays. That's every Saturday night, 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern, right here on SpacedOutRadio.com.
Psychic Sundays, spiritual communication, ET contact, Sasquatch in your backyard. We will have it all on Cosmic Passport with me, Elizabeth Anglin. Each Sunday, starting at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern, at SpacedOutRadio.com, I will take you on a journey of enlightenment. The goal is learning from the soul on out. We'd love it if you joined our experience. Cosmic Passport, heard Sundays at SpacedOutRadio.com.
365 days a year, we're in the field, investigating UFO sightings, talking to alien abductees, and visiting secret military locations like Area 51. We're UFO Seekers, official partner of Spaced Out Radio. Follow our daily search for the truth at ufoseekers.com or like us on social media. Catch us on Spaced Out Radio every third Monday of the month as we discuss Area 51, UFOs, and more. And also, don't forget to subscribe to us on YouTube.
It's paranormal news at its finest. Welcome to The Encounter. At SpaceOutRadio.com, The Encounter online is SOR's trusted news source for everything weird and strange going on around the world. This is news editor Eric Markham. Our team of journalists are scouring the planet for those strange stories that rarely make the mainstream. No fear-mongering or fake news here. Head over to spacedoutradio.com and encounter the encounter.
Heading to Vancouver and looking for some great nightlife? The Moose Vancouver is the place to be. Catch a game on one of the big screens or just come rock out to your favorite 80s and 90s hair bands. Great food starting at $6.95. The Moose Vancouver is open until 2 a.m. nightly. It's easy to find near the corner of Nelson and Granville. The Moose Vancouver is the official rocking bar of Spaced Out Radio.
Want to learn more about aliens, cover-ups, conspiracies, cryptids, and the paranormal? All you have to do is tune in S4 as we take over Spaced Out Radio Night, starting at midnight Pacific, 3 a.m. Eastern, each and every Saturday night, right after Spaced Out Saturdays. Hi there, this is Eric Cooper from Forest Moon Paranormal. Join me, Corey Ruiz, and friends as we discuss the hot topics of the night. It's fun, entertaining, and as dark as the night. Find us at spacedoutradio.com.
Are you interested in advertising on Spaced Out Radio? Head to our website at spacedoutradio.com and click on our advertising tab. There, you will find an assortment of ways you can get your product out there with us, from radio commercials to banners and social media. Have a product you like our hosts to endorse? We can do that too. Visit spacedoutradio.com for more details.
Do you want to know what's really going on in your world? Do you have questions about who you can trust in the mainstream media? Then look no further than the Rebel Planet. Come get the straight answers right here at spacedoutradio.com. Join me, Jamie Sexton, creator of Rebel Planet News, as I fill you in on the stories behind the stories. All you truth seekers, be sure to tune in to Rebel Planet on spacedoutradio.com the third Thursday of every month.
Visit purpleplates.com today. For over 40 years, the Purple Energy Plates have been delivering amazing results for their many customers. Inspired by the great genius Nikola Tesla, the harmony, healing, and energetic effects of the plates have proven over and over to be beneficial and often miraculous to thousands of customers. Check their site for daily specials and choose from their many energy products. You won't be sorry. Visit them today at purpleplates.com.
Hey, this is Canadian Paranormal Investigator Mike Moore. The third Wednesday of every month, I'll be teaming up with Dave Scott to bring you Ghosts of the Great White North. Each month, we will bring on guests from across Canada to discuss their ghostly encounters. Canada is a paranormal hotbed with stories you've never heard, so we're going to bring them to you. So get comfy on your Chesterfield, grab a donut, and join us, eh?
The views and opinions expressed by tonight's guest and topic of discussion do not necessarily represent the official policy or position of Spaced Out Radio, Spaced Out Weekend, Spaced Out Radio Limited, its hosts, syndicated carriers, or anyone associated with this broadcast. Would you like to connect with us? Head to spacedoutradio.com for all your latest show info. And hit us up on Twitter using the hashtag Spaced Out Radio. Now, back to Dave Scott and SOR.
Welcome back to Spaced Out Radio. Tonight I am your host, Dave Scott. Great to have you with us. Tomorrow night of the program, we get back into the paranormal with Ghosts of the Great White North with Mike Morin from Haunted Crew of Canada. We get going at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern Time at spacedoutradio.com. We want to welcome in everyone listening in on WQEE 99 Rock the Key down in Noonan, Georgia, home of the Walking Dead. We are live as well on the United Public Radio Network, 107.7 FM in New Orleans and over 160 countries around the world. We are also live at spacedoutradio.com, Spreaker, and you can listen to us on The Fringe FM. Go to thefringe.fm and listen to 24/7 programming on the paranormal. Bill Cardwell has set the password for tonight in the SOR Space Travelers Club. Trichotillomania. Trichotillomania is your password. Make sure you use it wisely, Space Travelers, as Bill sets a password each and every night right here on the mighty SOR. Now, we are all over social media. You know where to find us: Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. You can watch us live on periscope.tv every Monday through Friday night. Or, if you're wondering where we hide our archives, subscribe to our YouTube channel. Go to youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. We would greatly appreciate it. If you head to our website, spacedoutradio.com, we have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to some Bumblefoot. Shop at our Spaced Out Radio store. Read The Encounter online. Or you can watch great videos from UFO Seekers, Contact TV, and so much more. Tonight we have literally one of my favorite people in this entire weird, strange industry that we call the paranormal, ufological, whatever you want to call it. Miesha Johnston is with us. Her website, starseedawakening.com. She is a MILAB and MKULTRA experiencer and survivor, and she has some amazing stories to share with us tonight. Misha, welcome back.
And thank you for having me. Just one little thing, it's starseedawakening.org.
You know what? I actually had .org written down.
Okay, that's fine.
I did. I just accidentally threw in the com. So yes, .org, starseedawakening.org. And so if you have been an experiencer of MKUltra or some sort of program that you're not sure of, get a hold of Misha. She is a champion when it comes to helping sort out these type of experiences. To me, she is the best in the world at this. So get a hold of Misha if you have had any weird experiences that you cannot understand. Misha, what's it like coming from a mind control family?
Well, you know, there's something I wanted to say. I'm kind of going to read it, but it's the best way to describe it. Who makes a good candidate for a mind control? A primary important factor for the trauma-based mind control and the ability to dissociate. So they've discovered an ability that's passed on genetically from generation to generation to dissociate. Some people will say it is a flaw, but in actuality, it is an ability. So not everyone has that ability to dissociate. So they look for that in people. The CIA and the Illuminati are skilled at blackmailing parents to give up their children as well. They would watch. Now, this is not the case of my father. From my knowledge, I did not. Well, I shouldn't say that. Well, I shouldn't say that. In memories I've had, I have been handed over by my father to what they called the deacons of the church, and that indeed that's pedophilia, and there was other things like that. But so I guess this might apply to. So they would watch the mail for porn, pedophilia, and murderers who abuse their children and warn that they will go to prison for long lengths of time if they do not cooperate by selling their children into mind-controlled slavery. The type of father who is most preferred by our programmers to offer up their children for programming is a pedophile. It is if a father will abuse his own little baby girl, the programmers know that that man has no conscience. So that is how it is. And, you know, in my father's case, he did hypnosis from his magic times, and he was a magician, and he did hypnosis, and all of the siblings have talked about being hypnotized, but never really knowing what happened afterwards. And for me, the reason my book is called They Weren't Butterflies, which is on Amazon.com, it's a monarch survivor story, is because my father would hypnotize me into seeing butterflies, and that I could see butterflies. So the perpetrators were not men or mean people. They were just memories of butterflies. So hypnosis and psychosurgery were also used to create a compatible person, like that they can actually make an agent out of, and that person, because of this dissociation and being a dissociated person, they could torture. They could be tortured. They could be captured and tortured, and their mission would never even be tortured out of them because of being dissociated. They would never know that other person existed in them. And so they could carry secret information given to them in this altered state of consciousness, and through the means of drugs, LSD, ketamine, psilocybin, and a lot of different other kinds of drugs that would cause amnesia, So a person would just have the amnesia, or a child would just have amnesia and not remember. So that's why I don't remember my childhood at all, or up into my, gosh, I'll tell you for honest sake, I really don't even remember when I had my children. I don't even remember that, because this continued on for so many years. I have so many blank spots. It's very hard for me to really put a chronological order to my life. So I get confused a lot with the time that transpired during this, and so that, you know, the DID is that this is huge part of what they do to cause. It's also the hypnosis, so and the ketamine and the different kinds of drugs cause that amnesia. And I might also say that they look for people who are ADD. In the days when I was growing up, nobody even knew what ADD was, but they look for ADD and dyslexic people because, to be honest with you, the genius gene between people of dyslexia and ADD is very, very close. So they want that intelligence because, I'll explain to you also, as I got older, the different things that happened to me, and that the programming got completely different. And, you have any questions before I go into that?
No, I'm just rolling with what you were saying.
Okay.
You go right ahead.
Okay. Well, so in order to, create the multiple personalities, the program they have to start from the very beginning when you're a child. And so that is why they start very young. 3 is my first memory, but I have since, with regression, found out it started while I was a baby, in certain ways that my father started with the torture. So at age 16 was my last experience with ETs that I could remember for later into my adult life. And it's as if at a certain point, I think they kind of just had to vacate because a lot of people who have had ritual abuse and had pedophilia and torture and stuff, it sometimes gets blamed on the ETs. And it happens a lot. And I see it a lot coming through with my the hypnosis sessions I do for people, that they think it is one thing and they think it's an alien, and and the aliens are the bad ones, and they're the ones that are doing all the torture, and they're the ones that are doing the rape or anything else. And when they come to find out, they find out it's humans. And so at age 17, I was not quite 18. I'd already graduated high school, and I was at the college. This was January, and I was. They just come back from break. I was not in college. I was checking it out to attend college, and I was in the cafeteria with some people, and somebody walked up to me and said, and to us, and said, "Hey, we're doing a sleep dream program, and we're just, if you be in this program, you get money. We'll pay you for it, and all you do is we just watch you dream, and it's right here, just right in the campus," which I ended up. And I don't know who else did, but I did. I ended up saying yes, and probably due to my programming, no doubt. And last thing I remember is walking through this brown stone building, just off the campus, like maybe just barely off the campus. And I walked in there. I saw people in what I would assume nurses and lab coats, and that was the last memory I had, until 8 months later, I wake up in a bus, and I just like all of a sudden wake up. I have, and I look and I don't know immediately. I have no idea where I'm at, and then I realize I'm in a bus, and I scramble in my purse and I get this ticket and I look at it, and and I see it has somebody else's last name on it. It has my first name, but somebody else's last name, and I'm so perplexed. I don't understand. And then I try to just, relax and realize why I'm on the bus and what am I doing here and where am I? I'm going back home. I'm going home. All right. Well, that's good. I'm going home. Where have I been? And I start, going through and I get these flashes. Now, a very interesting thing takes place in these. When you're dissociated and you're having flashes, sometimes the flashes of the perpetrators and their implanted memories from hypnosis come through, and sometimes you get flashes of the real experience comes through. And so I was getting flashes that the first flash was, okay, that name, it belongs to a guy named Charlie. Wow. I was married to him. I don't remember being married to him. And then this other flash comes through. Oh, you got a divorce. He wanted a divorce so he could go to medical school. He was a Navy Marine corpsman, and he wanted to go to medical school. Now, I know this is hard to follow, but this is I will try to make it as plain as I can. So all the way home, I'm getting flashes, and then I get another flash. I get a flash that I'm on a bus with other kids, some 17 and 18 younger women, and then there's some younger boys, 11, 12, 13, and we pull up at this big iron gate, and as we go through the gate, another memory comes in my head. Oh, this is all just because you cleaned mansions. But then this other flash comes to me that I'm there with this bus, and it's nighttime, and there's lights and there's limousines, and there's fancy cars around, and there's people parking the cars, and we're taken to the back gate and to the back, and then my memories are gone. Then I have nothing more. And so I kept getting these flashes I'd get flashes of really horrific things, and then there'd be some kind of a flash come later of something kind of normal or like, for instance, I started getting an extreme headache, and then this flash came through. Oh, you were in the hospital. Because I had this one memory that I was in the hospital and I was moaning and groaning. It was dark, it was night, and I could hear other people moaning and groaning. And then this memory comes in to fill in and says, oh, you were there because you had encephalitis. Now, I did research on this for this place. Seattle is where I was supposed to be at, and Seattle is where I was at. And that at this time there was no encephalitis in adults. There were a few small cases of encephalitis in children, which is a brain disease, but none in adults. So that didn't compute. And so I kept getting these flashes. So when I arrived in, I'm not going to say where. When I arrived in Idaho, I called my family. My family came, and my parents came, picked me up, and said, where in God's name have you been? We've not seen you since the wedding. And I said, I don't remember a wedding. And they said, you have to remember a wedding. You had a wedding. So they proceeded to tell me I had a wedding. I had a reception. They were not allowed to know much about it because in late in the middle of January, I contacted them and said, put an ad in the paper that I am going to get married, and I'm getting married to Navy Marine Corpsman, and I'm getting married, and I'll be married, and I'll give you a date later. So I evidently did not give them a date. And then I did subsequently finally give them a exact date when I sent them an announcement, or they sent them an announcement of the wedding and said, you're cordially invited to this my wedding. And now they know what the date is. So they hurry up and they come, which is 65 miles away from their home. And they come to this city, the same city where I was at the college at. And I'm going to just tell you, it was ISU University. Because the reason why I want to tell you that, Dave, is because it has come to light that there are many, 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 many colleges that have been taken place of these mind control projects within their walls, let's say. So that's why I want to tell you that. So
I thought that was just really more so an Ivy League type school, because we hear so much about the Ivy Leagues with with Yale and the Bushes and the Skull and Bones and other groups like that, private societies.
Well, actually, you can find out from Paul Davids that there is a list of over hundreds of colleges that were involved. And the whole idea is you get a college that is, it's not about Ivy League and it's not about that. It's about who they want to get into their projects and such. But he talks about hundreds of different colleges. And in Idaho has a very bad reputation for ritual abuse and satanic ritual abuse and things like that. So I believe, and the predominant religion there has a lot of situations where this type of thing occurs and happens. So it's definitely in a lot of colleges. So I would imagine in this time, in the 60s and the 70s, this was much more prevalent than we can possibly imagine. This is how they got people, and I'm also looking for people who had missing marriages and such. I know this happened to me because I have a marriage license and my parents told me I was married. I have no memory of walking down the aisle. I have no memory of the man. I have no memory of the wedding. I mean, who forgets their only wedding? I mean, I ended up getting married later, but I didn't have a wedding. So, but I had no memory of any of that until I did have one flash of that, because these flashes come to you as things start coming. And I did have a flash that I was standing in front of a mirror, except that it wasn't me. I was looking at this person that looked like me, but I knew it wasn't me. And I was the one on the inside looking at this person. And this person was in a wedding dress, and she was supposed to be me, and I was screaming, no, 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 don't, no, please, no, because I knew what was happening, because I had been put in the driving program. I did find out that with a lot of research, I found out that indeed what they do is it's called a driving program, and in the driving program, they put you to sleep for days, weeks, months at a time. They they do mind control, shock treatments, all kinds of different other things to malleable and make you into these dissociated alters that they want to. So that's what they did. And I later found out during a regression that the person was, my therapist was asking me, why don't you remember your wedding? Why don't you remember your wedding? And this other being took over, the altar came through, and said, because it wasn't her wedding, it was my wedding, and she's asleep like she's supposed to be. And they said, ask her what her name was, and she said, my name is Darlene. And they asked her when she was born, and she was born when I was 4 years old. And they asked her what her job was, and she told them that her job was to keep me alive. That if it wasn't for me, she's the one that had to endure all the pain. She's the one that had to do all the bad stuff and had to do the rituals. And if it wasn't for her, I would be dead. I keep her alive. I'm the strong one. And so that was some pretty intense information, finding that and hearing the tape of my altar coming through. And so then I needed a lot of work, and I went through a lot of therapy, a lot of inner child work, a lot of deprogramming, a lot of integrations of the altars. One was the Darlene, another one was Charles, who was the one who did all of the bad things, per se, is what they said, and then the other one was a really pitiful child. When I was integrated with the Charles altar, it was very interesting because he had so much pain himself, and me, I mean, how to explain this, but it was me, but it was in a he altar, and he cried and cried and cried and cried and cried, trying to for all the things that he had done and that he remembered when the integration happened.
That is... How do you recall all of that? Is it just burnt into your absolute memory, these experiences, because they are so unforgettable? Or is it something, Misha, where when you look back, these are all memories that were brought through thanks to maybe hypnotherapy or dealing with some sort of psychiatric help?
Yeah. A lot of them. I had pieces, and what I have is a piece of this altar that would come through, and then we'd work on that for many times. And I did have regressions that helped me. I did have psychotherapy that helped me. As I said, I integrated with therapists and with actually friends who assist me as well. One of them is a lovely person in Canada, actually, who assisted me with integrating, of Charles, actually. I might mention at this time, mentioning Canada, that Cameron, a doctor named Cameron, I can't think of his first name, was in Canada, and he started this sleep program. He started the what did he call it? The driving program, the sleep program. And he started in his psychiatric hospital that he was the director of, and he turned it on over to the CIA. In fact, there is a movie called, I think it's called The Sleep Room or something like that, that explains how all of that took place and how they did it and how the programming is done to dissociate people and to implant memories. Now, I will tell you, to be 100%, I cannot tell you that everything I endured, happened to me, was not all, that some of it might not have been some programs that were put in, or some false memory that was put in. Because, when people were trying to come out in the 80s about this, and other people such as myself were trying to talk about this, they were talking about the false memory syndrome. And I do not believe that engulfs all of what has happened to so many of us who have been in these MKUltra programs. And because let me explain a couple other things. There's the programming that they use. They have, they start out with, if I can remember them all, the Alpha program. I'm trying to remember this. I thought I might have those written down here, but I can't remember them. It's very hard to remember things like this. But anyway, that they have a program, and they have your Alpha, your Delta, your Theta programming. Alpha is the programming on how they start programming someone to be able to have photogenic memory, to be able to memorize things so that they can be used as couriers and such as that. Then you have the Alpha, and then you have the Beta programming, which is the sex slavery, where they're taught how to be perfect sexual slaves, so that they can learn all of the methods and everything to seduce people, because what their job is in a lot of times is to seduce somebody into being in a situation where they're compromised, where there's videos taken of them, and now the powers that be can come to them and say, we have this nice film, and you did some really creepy, horrible, kinky, awful things, and you're a married man with a family, and do you want this to come out, or do you want to vote the way we want you to vote, or do you want to let this person off? They're a judge, for instance. I mean, I remember a situation where I compromised a judge. There's all kinds of different things they use the beta slaves for, and they use them in entertainment, if they want to entertain, like at Bohemian Grove, for instance, and the different conferences and things, they use them that way. I'll give you an example. In fact, the memory that I actually finally retrieved of the truth of what happened to me when I was in front of that iron gate in the bus with those young boys was as we were taken through the gate. It was a party. It was a big party. And we were taken in the back. We were led up the stairs. We were given drugs. We already had drugs in us, I'm sure, but we were given drugs more drugs. The boys were given drugs. The women, young women, were given clothing, fancy gowns to put on. We were taken downstairs to to mingle and entertain and get messages, retrieve different kinds of messages or information. Also, we were to invite them up to then, of course, to entertain them. And then we were also to bring up some to the boys, and the boys were also party favors. So that's what they called us, party favors. Now, if you've ever seen the show Eyes Wide Shut, that is real.
Yes.
That is so real. But they don't use prostitutes. They use kidnapped people that they've used and brainwashed and put under drugs and such. That's what they use and control. And it's real. I know The Mask. I've seen The Mask. He absolutely depicted everything so right on, with the exceptions of saying they were prostitutes. They weren't.
Can I ask you a question about that? These kidnapped young ladies who are put into these programs, I don't know how else to put it, sex cult, what happens to them?
Well, most of them commit suicide. Most of them have programming and in fact, during my hypnotherapy regression on these experiences, I hit many of the triggers to commit suicide. So a lot of them will commit suicide. Some of them are so used up they end up on the street living or becoming a prostitute. Not many of them make out alive, to tell you the truth. Only way I made it out alive, I know, is because of my galactic connection with my ETs. Because they never, ever left me completely. They were always my guiding, I should say, they can't interfere. It's free will, and I agreed before I came to this incarnation that I would be in this family, and then I would learn and endure these things so that I have more information, I guess, and more understanding. I know more about the ways of the world, and so that when people come to me, there's nothing that seems bizarre or crazy or bad or evil. It's bad and evil, but it doesn't. The person isn't. The person isn't crazy, and I can understand where they come from, what's happening to them.
Is this where we hear all of these grotesque stories about the internet's dark web and the people trading and the sex trades that are going on and all of these horrific snuff films that are apparently available on the dark web? Is this where all of this kind of leads to? Well,
yes. They, in different ages, they use people for different things. Some people, if they, for whatever reason, I don't know why. Some people are chosen, some people are not. But some people are chosen to be in the snuff films. Some people are chosen to be in the beta. Some children are used in the pedophilia, and some children are used in the sacrifices. There was a situation it was in San Francisco. It wasn't in Seattle, and I'll tell you about that 8 months missing period time as well. But in San Francisco, I remember being taken actually, in a big limo, and there were many of us, and we were taken to some kind of a party, and then after the party, we were taken into an underground area. There were other people there that were not part of this small group that I recognized, and they were all different ages, and they were the sacrifices. And I was standing watching those sacrifices, and one of the men leaned over to me and said, "You could be there, but you did good work today. You were a good girl, so that's why you're not there." And basically telling me how as long as you do this, you won't die. So those memories, not consciously, came out later. It wasn't a conscious memory but I did find out that was one of the things that he said. And so for some reason, evidently because of my photogenic ability, and I have other memories where I was taken different places, and that I passed on information. One time I was taken in a big black car, and I was let out of the car, and I walked up to a door, and I said, I knocked on the door, and when he opened it, I said, "It's a bright sunny day." And he said, "Yes, it is." And he proceeded to give me information, coordinates, and these coordinates were of how they were going to go in and destroy this country, so that they could take over this country and put their ruler in place. So these are the kinds of things they also use the beta slaves for. They also train beta slaves to be part of Delta, which is the assassination squad. But most of us are used to put people in situations where they're at the place where they have the assassination. They're coerced in there some way, and we put them in that place so that then they can have then they can then be killed.
Interesting. When is and I'm trying to phrase a question here properly for you. The people who are taken, are these mysterious cases where we just see not only children but men and women just up and disappear without a trace, where we would when you go back in their storylines, there's no drug problems, alcohol problems, depression, suicidal thoughts? Is that the type of people who are being taken, or are they just taking strictly children because they can groom them into something that they want, rather than somebody who's already maybe gone through college or some sort of adult life?
Well, they really want people that they can make disappear without anybody really noticing. So a lot of runaways end up in these programs. A lot of children who are in foster care end up in these programs because while they're in foster care, these things are happening to them. A lot of, homeless people. Sometimes homeless people are used. Genetically, generational children are brought into it. Some people are, like my father and my mother lost so many kids, 5 kids, that I definitely believe that that's also one of the things, that they will get somebody in mind control program and then their children are sacrificed as well. So they get it from a lot of different sources, and they get a lot from other countries too.
Who is involved with these groups? Is it the Illuminati, the Bilderbergs? Is it some of these billionaires that we hear so much about, but have this brutal, devious side?
I would say yes, but definitely I believe that the Illuminati and the Bilderbergers and the Rothschilds and all of that, the Queen, all of them play a definite part in this. Some of them, even in the lower realms, or the lower levels, I should say, are stuck in it and can't get out. And they don't want. I mean, not too long ago, there was, I think it was a lawyer or somebody who came forward and said, I can't. I was in a party and they wanted me to do a pedophilia thing, and evidently he got out of there or somehow, and he came and he told his story. So I mean, this kind of thing. Evidently they did not. Fortunately, they did not have something on him. Otherwise, he wouldn't have been able to come out in the public about it. But it's the lower ranks as well. It's not just the higher ranks. And I believe that many of the lower ranks of people are basically programmed or used in it themselves, or if they are participating in it now, they're stuck and they can't get out.
When you are involved in this type of program, let's say not on the kidnapping side, but on the other side, are you doing it because you're kind of forced into this ritual, even though you may not agree with it personally? Have you ever talked to anybody on that side about why they do this?
Most of it is because they had no choice. They thought they were getting into something else, and once they got into it, then they were putting in situations where they were part of the perpetrators, or they were witness to it, and in order to have their family survive, they have to be quiet. So much of it is blackmail and from people's lives or of their crimes, things like that, and they don't want, they don't know how to get out. They don't know how. They're in fact an interesting. You were asking me about the art bell. There was another one that was really, really heavy that he had one time, and it was people who were trying to get out of the Illuminati, and somebody came forward and was talking about it. I remember that show too. That was a very interesting one. So.
Right.
You have the question for
I want to get into the experience that you and Misha and Melinda had after it started during your appearance on Coast to Coast, did it not?
Yeah, but that was not until 2000. I would like to share another experience.
Sure.
Okay, in 1970, when I had another 7 to 8 months missing time, and because the reason why I want to do this is for you to see how they make Manchurian candidates and how they do this. My memory is phone rings. It I thought was a fax machine, and it's the last memory I have until 8 months later. I answered I don't even know. Evidently an altar answers the door, and my brother is standing there. My brother, who's already gone through the mind control and been able to come out of it on the other side and survive. His was different. He was not in any adult programs. His was all basically more the torture from my father, and he actually ran away at age 17, as well as my sister running away at 17, and never came back and never turned back, so they got away. But he had come and said, "We have been searching all over for you, and where have you been here?" And I said, "I don't know, I don't remember anything." And so I ended up going back and it was San Francisco that I was in. And then I started I was getting some therapy on that, and I found out that I had been, at that moment, there was the call came in. It was a ring and a high-pitched tone. They said, "Go to Bob's Big Boy. He will be there." When I went to Bob's Big Boy, evidently, he was Charlie, that same handler that I'd had in the marriage, and a handler's job is to put people in the place where they need to be, to bring them to the places they need to be. So, and in fact, just to remember another flash of memory I had when I was married to him. The first time I had the abduction was I woke up and I was evidently in a hotel room, and I heard him and a man talking. Or actually, he was talking I heard him and a man talking, and he said, "Don't I always get them here? I always do my job. I always bring them here." So I don't know. And by the way, I checked on him and I found him, and he was a war hero. How about that? He was a war hero. So maybe he was mind controlled too. I don't know. But he was the one again, and this was in Salt Lake City that this happened. And then I was told to go to Bob's Big Boy. I went to Bob's Big Boy. Subsequently, I was also told to pack, and I packed everything. And I left that day with, I guess it was him. I can't 100% say it was him, but I get a feeling it was him because still can't see a face. I don't know if it was him. So,
Misha, were the police helpless? Did you ever go to the police with any of this?
Well, it's interesting you should mention the police. No, I didn't go to the police except that one time, on that time when going into San Francisco, evidently we picked up hitchhikers, and these hitchhikers were going to Woodstock. So we, I guess, took them to Woodstock before we went to San Francisco. I don't know. That's the memory that I have. And I also have a memory where we were arrested for vagrancy because we were sleeping fell asleep in the car along the road. No, actually, it wasn't the road. It was in a parking lot. And a police came up, and this is the memory. I can't tell you for sure if this is something that is implanted or if it's real because I have no way of checking it out. But supposedly we were taken to the police department, and the kids were runaways, so they were sent back to their home. And then we, because we were adults, were released to leave. But I don't know if we were on our way to New York. If we were in New York, I don't know where the policeman was when they were picked up. That's the only memory I have. So that's the only interaction I've ever had with the police because I've never talked. When you're in that programming and such, the little bit of cognizant memories and things you have are just not enough because if you go in and tell people what you've seen, they're going to think you're stark raving mad, especially in the 70s. They would have thought I was crazy. So, so now I'm having flashes of memories. I've retrieved memories about San Francisco, ritual abuse, Bohemian Grove. In Bohemian Grove, I will tell you that there is this is the memory I have, and I would really love to know if there's somebody else can remember this too. But at Bohemian Grove, behind the altars, behind the place where all of the ceremonies and rituals go, there is a backwooded area that is a place where it's like a motel, a hotel back there. And that's where they keep the party favors, both the young ones and the older ones. And that's what goes on at certain times of Bohemian Grove.
Isn't that where women are only allowed there until 9 o'clock, from what I've heard?
Oh, is that right? Oh, no, I did not know that.
I heard the rules changed there or something along those lines. We only have about 3 minutes before we have to go to our final break of the night, Misha. And this is a heavy topic for a lot of people who maybe do not understand or cannot conceptualize the entirety of this sort of happenstance in a law behind the laws, or the people who stand above the law. How real is this for people who do not understand?
Oh, it's so real. You can't imagine how real. I will tell you a little later about this, but some of the things and the torture ability, the things they've done to us to teach, to train us and everything, are what they're using on the targeted people now. The people that are being targeted on daily basis, that are having voice to skull, that are having microwave, that are being electric shocked and burned. These are the things that they use on us in our training and our turning us into their projects, like Project Artichoke and I'm trying to think of all the different projects. There was many projects. Project Artichoke, Project Bluebird. Bluebird's psychiatrist government mind control programs. Artichoke is the CIA project that for interrogations and methods of interrogations, and this became the Bluebird project. Of course, I mentioned the driving program and the Monarch and Slave, the Dollhouse program. There was a show called Dollhouse. I suggest if you don't believe this happens, watch you can watch it on YouTube, Dollhouse. Or you can watch Control Factor, which is another show that brings this out. There's many different shows now that, and Project Talent, of course. Marilyn Monroe was one of the first monarchs. And there's been many Hollywood monarchs, many Hollywood monarchs. They're coming out. Some of them are breaking programming, are falling apart on the stage, or shaving their heads. These are monarchs. These are Dollhouse, Monarch, the Pussycat program, and the Project Talent.
I'm going to get you to hold on right there, Misha, because we're going to go to our final break of the night. Miesha Johnston is our guest tonight. She is a victim of MKULTRA and MILAB experiences. Throughout her life, she now helps counsel people who have been through that procedure. Starseedawakening.org is her website. Starseedawakening.org if you want to check it out. We'll be back with more of Miesha Johnston and the weird, strange encounter she had with Melinda Leslie coming up right after this. Are you tired of being blocked, shadow banned, or placed in jail for simply posting your thoughts on social media? Social Media Freedom can take care of that for you. Social Media Freedom is the newest and one of the best free new apps that allows you the freedom to post what you want, when you want. It takes seconds to download from your app store. Come join the tribe at Social Media Freedom. It's time to set yourself free.
The first annual Caribou Paracon is happening September 28th to 30th in the 108 Mile Ranch, British Columbia. Brought to you by the Canadian Society of Questers and Spaced Out Radio. Come listen to our featured speaker, Grant Cameron, along with Elizabeth Anglin, Paisley Town, Mike Moran, Eric Cooper, and more. It's a 3-day supernatural adventure at the Spruce Hills Resort and Spa. Tickets for the weekend are $150 Canadian. The Caribou Paracon, celebrating everything paranormal.
A timepiece is a reflection of who you are, and what better way to show off the real you than with an Escape watch? Escape is a lifestyle brand accessorizing your days and nights. Choose to escape and create the life of discovery that you deserve. Dream, play, unite with your own personalized Escape watch. Head to escapewatches.com. There is no time like the present to enjoy your escape. Use promo code SMF2017 for your 20% discount today.
Looking for a place to advertise at a very reasonable cost? Look no further than Spaced Out Radio. SpacedOutRadio.com has an advertising tab that you can click to check out our daily, weekly, and monthly packages to play on the radio, or our website including social media. From commercial spots to banners, we have it all. Check out our competitive pricing today.
We are lighting the void on Saturday nights on Spaced Out Radio. Hey, this is Joe Roop, and I'm hanging out in SOR headquarters every Saturday night, bringing you the latest news when it comes to the weird and strange. Bigfoot, occult, UFOs, ghosts, and everything in between, I got you covered. You can tune in to SpacedOutRadio.com starting at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern Time. Come travel into the void with us on Spaced Out Saturdays.
Not ready for bed on Saturday night? Right after Spaced Out Saturdays, hop on over to S4 with Corey Ruiz and me, Eric Cooper from Forest Moon Paranormal. With S4, there are no limits to what we try and uncover. From government conspiracies to helping clean up the paranormal, no topic is safe on S4. We get to the heart of the matter, of the subjects you want to learn more about. So tune in on S4 starting at midnight Pacific, 3 a.m. Eastern, only on SpacedOutRadio.com.
There's stories, then there's the truth. Do any of us really trust the news anymore? This is Jamie Sexton, owner of Rebel Planet News. The third Thursday of every month, I appear on SpacedOutRadio.com to bring you the truth you deserve, without mainstream media lies or alternative media fear-mongering. We'll get to the heart of the story and deliver the truth you are seeking. So come join us here for the Rebel Planet at SpacedOutRadio.com.
The Call of the Wild is in Vancouver. The Moose Vancouver is one of the hottest bars and restaurants in the city. Open until 2 a.m. nightly, the Moose will rock you like a hurricane all night long. Great food with everything on the menu at $6.95 near the corner of Nelson and Granville. Get your horns up and come rock with us. The Moose Vancouver, the official rocking bar of Spaced Out Radio.
Visit purpleplates.com today. For over 40 years, the Purple Energy Plates have been delivering amazing results for their many customers. Inspired by the great genius Nikola Tesla, the harmony, healing, and energetic effects of the plates have proven over and over to be beneficial and often miraculous to thousands of customers. Check their site for daily specials and choose from their many energy products. You won't be sorry. Visit them today at purpleplates.com.
This is Eric Markham, news editor for the Spaced Out Radio's The Encounter Online. We have put together a great team of writers and journalists from all over the world to bring you top-quality paranormal stories, from alien encounters to the latest conspiracies. You won't find any of that fake news here. True stories and top-notch reporting as we look to bring these experiences to the mainstream. The Encounter Online, only at spacedoutradio.com.
Do you want to know the truth? Do UFOs exist? Are aliens real? Are the governments hiding the biggest secret in history? We're UFO seekers, and we're on a hunt for the truth. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and follow along with us as we journey across the United States, visiting UFO hotspots and alien hotspots, trying to document the UFO phenomenon. Catch us on Spaced Out Radio every third Monday of the month as we discuss Area 51, UFOs, and more. And also, don't forget to subscribe to us on YouTube.
You hear footsteps in the empty room above you. A rocking chair begins rocking by itself. Don't be afraid of the things that go bump in the night. Reach for Spirit Storybox, the iPhone app the Huffington Post UK called the only ghost hunting app you will ever need. Spirit Storybox. The spirits are telling their stories.
It's Cosmic Sundays with me, Elizabeth Anglin, in Cosmic Passport. Let me take you down a 3-hour spiritual journey where we will get into everything from ET contact to Psychic Sundays. It's a journey of listening and learning together with some of the best professionals in their fields. You can tune in to Cosmic Passport at spacedoutradio.com every Sunday, starting at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern.
The views and opinions expressed by tonight's guest and topic of discussion do not necessarily represent the official policy or position of Spaced Out Radio, Spaced Out Weekend, Spaced Out Radio Limited, its hosts, syndicated carriers, or anyone associated with this broadcast. You're listening to Spaced Out Radio with Dave Scott. Follow Dave on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio and hashtag Spaced Out Radio, and on Facebook, Spaced Out Radio Show. Now, back to the program.
Welcome back to the third and final hour of Spaced Out Radio tonight. I am your host, Dave Scott. Great to have you with us. Tomorrow night on the program, we step back into the paranormal with Ghosts of the Great White North. Mike Morin from Haunted Crew of Canada is going to join us at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern Time at spacedoutradio.com. We want to welcome in everyone listening in on WQEE 99 Rock the Key down in Noonan, Georgia, home of The Walking Dead. We are live as well on the United Public Radio Network, 107.7 FM in New Orleans and over 160 countries around the world. We are also live at spacedoutradio.com as well on Spreaker. And if you want to listen in to us online, go to thefringe.fm. Yes, we are broadcasting live every night on the Fringe FM. Bill Cardwell has set the password for tonight in the SOR Space Travelers Club. Trichotillomania. Trichotillomania is your password. Make sure you use it wisely, space travelers, as Bill sets a password each and every night right here on the mighty SOR. Now, if you want to follow us on social media, you know where to find us: Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. We are also on YouTube. That's where we store our archives. Go to youtube.com/spacedoutradio and subscribe to that if you don't mind. Also, you can watch us live on periscope.tv every Monday through Friday night. Our website, spacedoutradio.com, where we have a plethora of features for you. You can rock out to some Bumblefoot, shop at our Spaced Out Radio store, read The Encounter online, or watch great videos from UFO seekers, Contact TV, and so much more. Tonight we are talking with Miesha Johnston. I have to say the American pronunciation of that because the Canadian way isn't working. Miesha Johnston. Thank you, Misha. Her website, starseedawakening.org. She deals with MILAB and MKULTRA experiencers, helping them understand the process of what they have gone through. She is an experiencer herself. Misha, welcome back.
Well, thank you. Thank you. Thank you for having me. And I will try to endeavor to put some positivity, because I've had some wonderful life experiences that were positive. So we're going to leave that behind. There's lots more details. They can read it in my book, They Weren't Butterflies, Monarch Survivor Story, at Amazon.com. Or I have my other book, Covert Abduction, Military Harassment, Surveillance, Interrogation, and Mind Control. And that's an autobiography of MILAB. And so I'm going to be getting into some of that MILAB information now, as per your request. So in about 89, things kind of changed for me. Well, and actually it was it began in 82. I started having MILAB experiences where I would be abducted by a gray type, not my usual white willowy one. My white willowy one was nowhere to be seen. I hadn't seen him for years and years. But these grays would take me to underground bases. I was interrogated. I was taken to, sometimes I was taken by military, sometimes I was taken by grays, and I was also even taken by reptilians, and I was taken into the underground bases. Just to tell you a couple of little stories about the experiences in the underground. I do have a different understanding of these particular reptilian, draconian type, I think that they are, that were in the underground base, and how they feel about things. But one time I was abducted, I was kind of in a zombie kind of state, and I was walking, and I knew I was walking next to a reptilian. I knew that. And I saw these guys in uniforms, some of them carrying guns, some not, some in people in lab coats, and they would always look at me completely, but they would never look at what I was sure was walking next to me was a reptilian. And so I thought about this to my mind and said, why in the world are they looking at me and not you? I know you're there. And then I get this very curt telepathic message with vision, because when you are communicated with by ETs, not only is it words, but it's whole thought forms, it's whole sentences, and the message that came across was that they know better. They must honor us. They're not, and I saw people being shuffled off that ever looked at a reptilian in the eyes. They are not allowed to. Not to mention, people don't want to look at reptilians because they have an hypnotic ability that they can do something to and kind of do a brain melt, which happened to me in an experience where I was being interrogated once, and they were trying to find out my ETs that I worked with, that at that time happened to be some positive reptilians who had been at war with these draconians off planet for millennia, is what they told me. And that the men in the uniforms were actually, I should say, the lieutenant colonel. It was always a lieutenant colonel or above that was there that I saw in the interrogations. And I was being interrogated on where their ship was and where their base was. And so there was a reptilian. I was at first given this shot of something, and I was forced to drink it, poured down my throat. Then from then on, I was like more of a zombie than I was even before. When you're in ketamine, is a kind of drug that puts you in a state where you have no control over anything. You can sometimes see what's going on around you, but you cannot do anything about it. And you are pliable, and you walk and you move and you do whatever they want you to do because you have no self-will, you have no self-control. So they forced me to drink that, and then a reptilian came into the room that I would say more of a draconian. He had a longer snout, looked more animal looking to me than even the one that I had been walking with earlier, so it was not the same one. And he looked into my eyes, and it was as if he was bringing these thoughts up in my mind, and then they would disappear, and they were being brought up and they disappear. And I knew he was getting the information, and I was very, very concerned that I gave him their location. Subsequently, I guess I did not, because I was able to they were able to block that off or whatever it was. So I never did give them a location. And I was told by Ayano later that, no, you did not give the location. And oddly enough, I was very concerned because I hadn't seen him for a long time. And when I saw him, I said, is everything all right? Was your base attacked? And he said, no, you cannot give our location away. Evidently, I really don't know or didn't know the real location. Maybe, I don't know. So that was one of the experiences. Another time I was thinking to myself, because I knew they could hear me and I could communicate with them, and this is where the part of the interfacing comes in. I was interfaced and used many times to interface with aliens to talk to, for the humans to be able to communicate with them. And so this one particular time I was asking this draconian that was with me there at the time, and I thought, why are you trying to take over our planet? Why are you invading us? And this voice came into my head again with this voice to skull kind of thing of these understandable words, that we're not the invaders, you are. We were here long before you were. And then I was shown this imagery of these big dinosaurs and then these smaller type raptor dinosaurs, and how they hid and went underground during this big and it was not a natural comet attack, a comet thing. It was an attack from another being, and it was they used those comets as actual weapons and stuff. And so they went, and I'm sure they were after the reptilian and draconians and stuff that were on the planet, but the rest of them, they went underground. And so I think that gives way to the Quetzalcoatl and the devil and all these other things. I believe these are draconians. But in the same respect, there are positive reptilians that are out there, and they are living in Orion, and there's some in many other places. There are positive reptilians. I'm trying to think. Upper Centaurus, other planets have positive reptilians, and my reptilian that I had an encounter with, which ended up I subsequently found out that I'd had lives with this being before off planet, and his name was Ayano, and he showed up one night, and it's a very long story, and I'm not going to get into it because I won't have enough time, but you can read about it in my book, and it tells all the details of how I was learned and was taken that first night. Not really taken, it was a contact, and I could feel the energy, and it was a very positive energy, and for a long time he just showed me himself as energy, and then later on he showed me himself of what he really looked like, which was about a 7.5 foot reptilian with a short snout, very more like a nose, and beautiful yellow eyes, no tail, of course, because draconians have tails, but the reptilian species that are of a positive nature, that are in the galactic community, do not. So he has helped me many times because he looks so much like them. He's helped me actually escape one time from a absolute for sure death, and other times he came when they were about to abduct me and basically, chase them off. So that's Ayano, and Ayano happens to also be they also, like the Zeta Reticular and other types of beings, have a hybrid program. Well, he was in I was in the hybrid program, and one time I saw this kind of a green child, and if you go to my my advertisements for my radio show, Starseed Awakening, on KCOR radio, you'll see this little fellow in the advertisement, and he is a very cute little guy. And when I was in a nursery once with a tall gray being, this was not your regular short grays, it was a taller gray being, and I believe she was the nursemaid. And I was presented many times with children, but this particular time I was presented with this that looked much different than the rest of them. The other one had a lot more human looks and more human aspects, and kind of different colored skin, but mostly human. But this one was stockier and had green skin and scales. And I asked, who's the father? And they said, well, you call him Ayano, and the all. And when they told me that, they also gave me imagery about the all being all the other genetics that they use within the programs for the genetic program. Now, I'm in communication with a lot of different hybrids. I still am. And I speak galactic light language. I communicate with them. And there is a very, 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 very positive projects or positive experiences happening within the hybrid program. I know some people are concerned about the hybrid. Yes, there are many, many different hybrid programs. The government even has a hybrid program where they've used children in these programs of remote viewing and Montauk Project and genetics in there and turning them into artificial intelligence, AI and things like that. But there is the galactic programs that are of a positive nature, and the galactics say that they are the galactic hybrids have told me that they are the bridge between our civilization and their civilization, and that at the time of a great change, when the disclosure basically happens, and these are kind of the imagery I'm getting, and it isn't by government disclosure, by the way, but more, I believe, by the people who are experiencers and the consciousness raising and all of that, that's going to be the disclosure. But that they there will be many of us who are translators, and will be the translators or the interfacers between their world and our world to talk for our people, our people in charge, or politicians or whatever. Hopefully not politicians by then. Hopefully it's changed. But our hierarchy to be able to communicate with them through the translators. So there's many people in my groups that are speaking galactic language, and more people are being spoke this and in their experience. And I always ask when I'm on a radio show that if you feel that you're being talked to by galactic and they're speaking a different language that seems, different to you, and it's even coming out of your mouth, maybe during a meditation or doing qigong or anything like that, where you're in a good space, investigate that, because they've been saying that to me, that they've been speaking to many people for a long time, and they just want us to start listening and realizing many of these people are part of the translators that have to be taught more. So, it's full circle now that as a child I learned it in the classrooms, and now the hybrids are working with me and many other people. So I know you're dying to hear about the MILAB.
We have to get to that experience. I am not letting you off the air until you tell us what happened with you and Melinda. And for people who have not heard this experience, this is going to blow you away. I've only heard it once, and it scared the living daylights out of me.
Okay. Well, you need to know first, just to set this up, that I had, and both Melinda and I had been warned many times to stop. At the time, we were working on a book together, and it was going to be about all of the covert abductions and the harassment and surveillance and interrogation and mind control and all of that. And we had eyewitnesses. We had people who were in special forces and ex-military, and all kinds of people had come forward and had given us their testimony, and we were going to put it all together in a book, and we were going to put it out. And that was in the 1998, 99, 2000 time frame. And subsequently, I have been in an automobile accident with Melinda just prior to our time on Art Bell Show, in a few months prior to it, which was kind of odd. Then I had my identity theft that was done to me, and I was robbed and I had identity theft. And then I had many people just nonchalantly walk up to me in different places and say things that were threats, but they were the kind of threats that aren't threats. They were like, aren't you afraid that somebody's going to come after you with all this information you're coming out with? Or they'd say, this is a really dangerous thing that you do. You really better stop, and things like that. But then also I had a crazy man after me who was supposed to be somebody I was supposed to interview. And that's a long story in itself. It's also in my book, so I won't go into that. But I ended up, that was the first time I'd really, you know what, you asked me about the police. I did go to the police, and I did end up finding out that this guy had to have basically been sent in to kill me. And but I had figured my way out of that, so to speak. And I will, like I said, you can read about that in the book. It's a long detail. So, in 2000, we were asked to be on the show, and I think it wasn't Coast to Coast, it was Dreamland then, if I remember. I could be wrong, I'm trying to remember, but I believe it might have been a different name then. But it was Art Bell's show, okay? And it was just prior to him retiring, his first time that he retired. And in fact, he was not our interview, George Siegel was. And while we were on the show, I was about to talk about reptilians and underground bases, and I had just got the word, I'm going to tell you what I saw in underground bases, and I said reptilian, and my phone went off, and I was disconnected. So it took me a while to get back on, and once I did get back on, They had already moved to another subject, so I never was able to talk about my experiences and with seeing the reptilians and the bases. And this kind of thing had not been talked about either at all. Certainly not being at Area 51, which it was. So that was in when I lived in Las Vegas. But when this encounter happened, then with Melinda, I'd already moved from Las Vegas, and now we were working from. I moved in '98, and we were working on the book in '99 and 2000, and we'd been on the Art Bell show, and then after the show, she stayed over at my house and slept on my couch because. A few days later, we were supposed to be speaking at a conference, so we were getting our conference ready, our speech ready and everything. So the next day we worked on it, and then that night we went to bed. The next morning we woke up, and my coffee table was broken, and I walked into Melinda, and I said, "Why is my coffee table broken?" And she said, "Well, I don't know. I have no idea." And she was to go home that day back to Laguna Hills, and I lived in Carlsbad, and so Carlsbad, California, near San Diego, and so that she went back, and I went on with my day, and I started feeling really this sick feeling, and I'd felt it before. I knew when I was abducted, I knew something was up. So I went to my hypnotherapist, and I had a regression, and I found out exactly what happened. And at the same time, Melinda, in the city she lived in, she was feeling the same sick feeling. She said, it's just really foreboding, like something awful happened, but I can't remember. So she went and had hypnotherapy. And a couple of days later, we connected, and she told me what happened to her, and I told her what happened to me. And what actually happened was, in the middle of the night, men in black uniforms and night vision goggles came to my home. They must have done some kind of pre-drugging us. Maybe they sent an energy beam or what it was, but we were drugged. I was grabbed, one on each arm, and I was taken down the stairs of my condominium and put into a van, a white van. And she also was grabbed off the couch. And when she was grabbed off the couch, she's a bit bigger woman, and she was not quite completely drugged. And she started to lose balance, and she fell on my coffee table. So there's the reason why my coffee table was broken. And then we also found out that they had actually broke into my house, and that they had actually shimmied the door. And we did find out and get pictures of that as well. So they wanted us to know that they got in at some point, so that they knew. So we knew that we were not ever safe, is what they wanted to portray. So now we're back. Now she's taken and put in the van beside me, but not head to head. We're not. So we can't talk. Her feet are at my face, and my feet are her face, and we're taken. And to make this a long story short, next thing I remember, it's not the next thing, but I remember other things. But I'm in a room, and I'm being interrogated again by a lieutenant colonel, and he's cussing and screaming and carrying on and saying, "This is it, Art Bell. That's the end of it. You have been warned over and over and over. And to bring the point home, I want you to meet someone." And he left the room, and in walks this reptilian, draconian, different than anything I'd ever seen. Much bigger. This one had a tail. I don't remember the other ones having tails. They could have, but I never saw it. This one had like tufts, like wings that may have been folded in. He had a very long tail that drug and swung back and forth as he walked across the room. And as he got close to me, my heart was pounding out of my chest. And he reached down and looked in my eyes. And the vision, the next thing I am, as I'm standing in this room with it's like a white room, and here come these like ninja soldiers. They're in these, ninja black covers over their head and their face, and they have big long bayonets or swords, whatever you call them, and swords, yeah. And I see my family there, my sons and my granddaughter and my daughter-in-law, and they proceed to, chop them up in front of me. And I was screaming, but I didn't hear screaming. So I came out of it, and it's like he just disappeared. I can't tell you if he walked out or he disappeared, or I was so drugged by then. I don't know, but he disappeared from my view. He stopped. I did know that because the whole scenario stopped. So now the same thing happened to Melinda, and I should probably let Melinda tell you this, but I believe she's told it in before, so I'm going to go ahead and tell you. It's on record, so I'm going to tell you too. But the same kind of thing happened to her. She didn't have a family to threaten, so the similar kind of reptilian draconian came into her and leaned over her and put in her mind a scenario of her being raped by him and torn to pieces. And so we were really getting the message. I got the message very loud and clear, and I was planning on quitting. But I had one more interview, so I went ahead and met the person for the interview, and this person walked into the restaurant and said, my, aren't we been a busy little girl? And you've been told over and over, you've been shown how important this is, that you stop, that you go back to your hometown, you find yourself a man, you get married, and you forget about this because it's not going to bring you any happiness. Now, this terminology actually was also said during the interrogations I've had, many of them, that same scenario. This is not going to bring you any happiness. So, and then he proceeded to tell me how they pick up people's bones in the desert all the time, and missing family members and things like that. And he said, it'd be a shame if anything happened to your little granddaughter. She's 3 years old now, and you have those two sons. And I said, how do you know about my granddaughter? And he said, we know everything. We know where your sons work. We know everything about them. We know where they hang out. Where they bowl. And he was just giving me details that only somebody who knew and been watching my family would know. So it made me realize I had to stop. So on the way, I decided to go back, and that happened to be in Thanksgiving, Christmas. It was Christmas, I think, or it was either Christmas or Thanksgiving. No, it was Thanksgiving. I went home, and on my way home, I was ran off the road by a white unmarked van. That's another story. I was able to stay. I was in an accident, but I hit a cactus instead of a car. So thank goodness for that, because the eyewitness said that this van had zoomed up and drove in between the truck lane and had stayed there until I came, and then pulled out right when I went by and shoved me off the road. So then I got back home, and then I ended up coming back to San Diego after giving my family and telling them I was ending, I was quitting, I was over. And then I came back to San Diego and went and turned my car in and went across town to give my books away and meet with Melinda. And I was in another accident where somebody ran a light and flipped my car around 3 times, twirled it around, in the intersection. That's another story. And there was also one more message to me to shut up. And so I did, actually, Dave. I quit for 9 years. And because the time wasn't right, and we never got the book written. and it wasn't time to bring it out then. But it is time now because many, 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 many people are coming forward.
I have to ask you, in regarding to this experience, how did you know you were underground or in a building at Area 51?
No, not on that one. Other times on Area 51, I know, because those were other experiences of being underground. In fact, one was with my son, so I know that was here in Las Vegas. But no, this was in San Diego. That was in San Diego, and in fact, Melinda and I really have contemplated it many, many times of where we were taken. We were trying to figure out by the length of time, because she was in and out of consciousness. She was in more conscious state than I was. I was mostly in and out of consciousness during that ride over. But she seems to think that it was a Navy base, and I believe it was Pendleton. Miramar. She thought it was Miramar. I thought it was Pendleton. I still think it was Pendleton because of my other experiences in the base and the familiar thing. And now the reason why we knew it was an underground base is because Melinda was in and out of consciousness, and she remembers being taken in an elevator. Me, I was out most of the time, a lot of the time, until they decided to let me, wake up and interrogate me.
Another question I have, and I've been talking to Lorian Fenton about this, a good friend of yours and mine, is that certain people of the aviary seem to appear during these kinds of sessions. Was there anybody recognizable to you that you could name during any of these sessions that the public may know about, or that you're convinced that they were there?
In the underground bases or in the Monarch?
During any of your experiences. Yeah.
There were some big stars of their time there. Bob Hope was one of them. Crosby was another one. There was a senator who had just recently retired that was there. He's like 79 or 80, something like that now. 78 maybe, I don't know, something like that. There were some more Hollywood people that at the time I recognized, but I can't tell you right now I can't tell you who they were. And then as far as the underground bases, I don't know. I can't tell you them. I'll only tell you this, is I know they were always lieutenant colonel or above. They were always that. And, but I couldn't tell you. I didn't recognize any of them. I did recognize what I think is Dr. Green, who has another name of Mengele, but I thought of him as Dr. Green. But since I saw his picture, Dr. Mengele, who is one of the paperclip Nazi scientists that was the foundation of mind control. And, some of the things that, like the helmets and things like that they put on my head and everything, they would show me really scary things. And they also showed me faces, and I don't exactly know. I can't tell you all of that, but they'd show, like I said, they'd show me really, really horrible, gory, killing, scary things, desensitizing me to this, and which is interesting, what they're doing to people in targeting that are being targeted, and there's so many. I could go into a whole lot of detail about all the things that they're doing to people in the targeting, and they're doing to people in crowd control, all the non-lethal weapons that they have now in place. They've been very, very busy, and they started it all with we were the test pilots. People in my era were the test pilots. We were the guinea pigs to test all the stuff in a physical way that they now are using remotely on people, like electric shock. They actually, they've, the police have taser guns, stun guns, and all of those. They were using those kinds of cattle prod things on us, is what they used on us a lot of times to keep us in shape or keep us in line.
It is a heavy experience with that. How long was it after that experience with Melinda that you finally were able to talk to anybody about it? Because obviously when you hear them talking about they know every move your family is making, from your children to your grandchildren, that has to be so distressing that you must have just clammed right up for a while.
I did. I clammed up for almost 9 years. And I tried to get out of it, and I got out of it. I got out of everything, but I didn't get out of everything. They still accessed me. I still have missing time when I was in after I got out of it. They didn't let me out of it. They continued to use me for many years after that, and then I finally. It's kind of like. I had to come back here because my mother was failing, and I came back here to Las Vegas. And when I did, everything changed. It's like I woke up completely. It was like I woke up again, and I realized, you know what? They never stopped, and I'm not stopping. So I got back into it and started my groups again. And I'd had, support groups since 1991. I'd been having facilitating support groups for men, women, and children and teenagers, and, the children and their parents and the teenagers, with agreement from their parents. But my sons had had so much experience. I wanted them to be, and so they had other kids that were there too. So anyway, so I'd had all these experiencer groups for so long, and when I was in California, I continued them. But then for that 9 years, nothing. And then I have started to back up, and they're going strong now. I'd like to tell you a little bit about them.
Absolutely. We got time?
Okay. All right, so this is really near and dear to my heart because this is why I went through what I went through, is to help people, to assist people to have a place to share. People isolate in these experiences. That's why, I said people end up dying and stuff because they isolate. And in not only the ET experiences that they don't share and talk about it, and feel safe, but all of the mind control and the MKULTRA and the ritual abuse and the targeting. And so I offer a safe place for people to come and share in my home twice a week in Las Vegas. And then I also have UFO of Las Vegas group, and that's a meetup group where I bring in speakers and so people can come and listen to the speakers, and then of course they join my experiencer group that's local, and then I have internet groups that I've been doing for 5 years, and these are virtually live internet groups that any of your listeners has come to. If they just come and message me and ask to join the group, they can do that. I usually I talk to them. I may have them fill out a questionnaire to find out what is the best group for them, or if they are indeed an experiencer of what type of paranormal activity, or whether they're a MILAB or MKULTRA or super soldier or anything like that. I have people like that, super soldiers, target individuals. I have secret space program people in the group. It's any kind of topic you can imagine. These we talk about in these groups, and I have 2 of them. I did have 3, and I will be having 3 again. So that I will be having the European group back again soon. Whereas I have that so that the European people can come in because of our time differences. But right now it's Wednesday from 3 to 6, and that's on Zoom Live virtual. So they just go to Zoom USA to download it. And then I have one on every Sunday from 12 to 4. And that is also on Zoom. And they can contact me through my website, starseedawakening.org, or they can go on Facebook to Starseed Awakening ET Experiencer Group. And that group they can join. That's a private group. They can also go to Starseed Awakening Group, which is it's also private, but it's pretty much open to anybody who is awake and wants to find out more about their galactic heritage or their life or their experiences. And then I have another group, which is the MKULTRA, DID, MILAB, MKULTRA, Monarch and Super Soldier Secret Space Program. And that group is also a private group, and they can come on. And I have a wonderful person, Kat, who is facilitating that for me and helping me with that, because I just wouldn't be able to keep up with all of it. And then I have another wonderful gal named Lynn, who takes care of my Starseed Awakening group. And they can go and find that. And any time, any week that they go on the events, they'll find my advertisements for my groups that they can come and join. Those are free. If you'd like to donate, I am absolutely welcome the donation. It helps me. And love to see people come and share and get out of the isolation that they're in. Also, I'd like to just tell you about where they can get I think I told you about Amazon.com is where
yes.
they can... Whoops,
Do
right?
it again, though.
Okay, well, my first book is Covert Abduction, Military Harassment, Surveillance, Interrogation, and Mind Control. That is the one that has the story with Melinda and I and our experience and what happened to us and all my other MILAB experiences. Almost all of them. I have some more and They Weren't Butterflies, which is my second book. And the Monarch Survivor Story, which is my story and its completion. I am writing a third book, and that's going to kind of take over where They Weren't Butterflies lets off, which is coming into the last 10 years of my life and such. And all the different things that are happening there. So,
how many people are actually experiencing this, Melinda? Are there a lot more than what we actually think?
I'm
Misha. Sorry, Misha.
That's okay. I love Melinda. That's fine. She's a good friend. So there is a much larger, I wish I could give you the figures, but I will tell you that if you go to the Free Foundation, that's the Edgar Mitchell Free Foundation, they have done, and in fact, participate in that. I think you can still answer the questions, but they have done major surveys on all of this, and they have huge numbers of people that have had experiences, much, much more. I mean, probably easily 30% of the population.
Do the majority of people know that they have actually gone through this, or have they been absolutely mind wiped to the point where they may not even have a clue?
They just have little snippets of memories, little flashes that they'll get. Sometimes they'll get them through their dreams. Sometimes they'll just have these like post-traumatic stress flashes. And people who have gone through this have post-traumatic stress. They are as if they were in a war, because this is a war that happens to people. This is an atrocity that happens to people. So they just have little inklings. They may not remember any of their childhood. It's a big point, a big symptom there, that if you don't remember your childhood, you very well have some trauma in there that you need to look at. Perhaps it's not this, and maybe it is. If your family has been in the secret societies, and they're high ups in the secret societies, such as my family were high ups, then that is also an indication that there could be something there. If your family's in the secret space program, or excuse me, in NASA or the space program, or they're in secret project programs, or that they work in above top secret kind of things, that's also an indication that you may have been a victim, because the way they look at it, if they own them, they own you. So anything, they can do anything they want. And it's very interesting. Back in, well, I don't know when it was, 80s or something like that, X-Files had a one of their parts in their series, and it depicted that very thing, that these big shots in the military and other back engineering and all of that kind of technologies and industry and everything their children had been abducted, and that they had to let them go. They had to. So those are some of the scenarios. They also, like I said, are going to have post-traumatic. They're going to have a real bad connection with their family, not have any memory. Now, if you have your ET experiences, those are another thing. That's also a mind wipe. And I asked them, why did they wipe my mind? And they told me that it would be better for me not to remember that people from other planets were visiting, because I needed to just be able to go on with my life. So it was better for me not to know that. And that's, I believe, is one of the reasons that they do. And it's non-interference. If they have a galactic universal law of non-interference. So even though we have accepted this mission on planet Earth, and there's many of us who have, and it can be everything from just ET experiences to the contact of and the vectoring in of the ETs, or it can be the government and the MKULTRA and all of that. But we have made contracts. And I will tell you one other thing. People ask me how I got out of this. This is something I never got a chance to tell you about, but it was my experience with the Galactic Council and how they helped me cancel my contracts, all of my contracts. So that's what's another thing people can do. And in mentioning Vector 5, I want to just tell you one other thing. I do have, as I said, I do hypnosis and I do readings with my galactic cards. I've developed with Hannah Newberry these experiencer cards. Is really exceptional cards to find out what your experience is. And then, of course, I have my galactic charts that the beings have helped me have channeled through me, and those will give you information about the galactic that you've had encounters with, because I dowse with those, and I use the cards and I do readings that way, and they can see all of that on my website, as well as my regressions. And I specialize in trauma release therapy for people who have had the trauma. I work with a lot of super soldiers, targeted people, some Delta Force, MKULTRA, all kinds of people like that. And then a lot of experiencers as well. And then I even do past life regression. So they can also see my website there. And then my other website, Vector 5 Tours, is my night vision. It's interesting that night vision was used on me to abduct me one time. Well, now I've turned the tide on that, and I take people out to do night vision. And Tana Newberry, my partner with the cards, also does night vision in Benicia, outside of San Francisco, in Benicia, California. And I do them here in Las Vegas and in Victorville. But we are joining forces, and we're going to be in Hawaii for a month, coming the 2nd of May through, we're going to be in Oahu for the first 15 days, and then the last 15 days we're going to be in Maui. And our friends Sasha and Janet Lesson are going to be part of it as well. So we're going to be offering these night vision tours. They can also find them through Airbnb, because I work through Airbnb, or they can go right on our website and save yourself a little money, because it's cheaper that way, to go on our website, Vector 5 Tours, or it's also called Night Encounters. So I'm very busy these days. Ever since I retired, I got really, really busy.
Excellent. And Tana is just a beautiful soul as well. We got to give a little bit of props to Tana Newberry. I'm so excited. We're
on your show.
Well, we're trying. We're trying and efforting.
Oh, good.
We just haven't had the opportunity to line up a date yet. I'm looking at my calendar right now.
All right.
And we just haven't had the opportunity to line up the date. But we will. Oh, okay. Yes, we will, because it's something that we both want to do.
Okay, good. I will be speaking and doing night vision tours at a conference at the Cosmic Highway in July 24th, and I'm also going to be speaking in October at a conference in New Mexico. And I can't remember the name. Oh my goodness, it's Cosmic. Oh, I don't know. I can't remember the name. They're going to kill me for that. But look in October at Albuquerque, New Mexico, and you'll find it in October, the latter part of October.
We got about a minute and a half left with you here. What a pleasure it was to have you on the show tonight.
Thank you, Dave. It was really nice. My goodness, I've never been on a 3-hour show before. I did not think I could ever fill it that time at all. You
did it fantastically, though.
Oh, well, thank you very much. Thank you very much. I hope that it wasn't too intense for people. I am sorry, but that is my story, and I cannot change it. It isn't. I can't make it softer, because that's not the truth. So I have to tell it like it is. So the truth will set you free. So if you too have these stories, the truth will set you free.
Mm-hmm. And, it's one of those things where, eventually when you can finally talk about it and you get actually people who are listening to you and understanding your experiences, it makes it that much easier as well.
It does. It absolutely does. Yes. And that's why I encourage people, if you don't go to my group, go to somebody's group. Start talking. Start sharing. Get out of the isolation.
Mm-hmm. Misha, once again, give your website out so that way we can, have people who might be experienced or need someone to talk to, they can get a hold of you.
Okay. Starseedawakening.org. And that's Starseed Awakening. It's Starseedawakening.org. Or they can go to my website, my Facebook website as well.
All right. I'm going to get you to hold on here for a second, because I'm going to wrap this thing up, Misha. Thank you so much for being on Spaced Out.
And thank you to the listeners.
All right. Thank you. Tomorrow night on the program, Mike Morin from Haunted Crew of Canada is going to join us as we talk Ghosts of the Great White North. We get going at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern Time at spacedoutradio.com. Once again, we want to say a big thank you to Miesha Johnston for going the distance with us tonight. If you ever get a chance to meet Misha at a UFO conference or any type of conscious level show, or even if you're in Vegas, she is one of the most beautiful people you could ever meet. Honestly, a heart of gold. We got Mr. Ron Bumblefoot THAL rocking in the background with Little Brother Is Watching. Bumblefoot is the official music of Spaced Out Radio, rocking us in and out of every single show. Get your horns up for the guitar god himself. I want to say a big thank you to everybody listening at home, in your cars, at work, wherever you may be. Thank you for spreading the love of this show. A big thank you to everybody on Twitter at hashtag Spaced Out Radio, on Periscope.tv for chiming on in. the veterans in the SOR Space Travelers Club, and everyone on Spreaker tonight. You had a great time. We had a great time with you. Thanks for sharing our posts, our shows all over social media, talking to your friends about it. We get bigger and better every single night, all because of you. And, of course, together, my friends, we own the night. I will talk to you in 21 hours from now. Mr. Bumblefoot, we need a favor. We need you to take us home. Have a good one. Good night.